A very warm welcome to all of you. So, today I'd like to touch upon how rapid e learning can really help you meet the demands of training in your organization. So, what exactly is rapid e learning anyway? So, basically, it's learner centric e learning solutions, but built for speed and scale. So, there should be an element of repeatability. And as is the case with any other sound training program, these need to be based on performance based learning objectives because at the end of the day, uh, it is through your training, you hope to achieve an improved performance in your learners in whatever skills they're being trained on. So when these three are aligned, your desired organizational results, and from there trickle down the desired performance, and from there, based on that, you come up with your performance based learning objectives. So basically, rapid e-learning, the word rapid might seem slightly misleading to a few that you're cutting the process short and so on, but that's not really the case. Rapid e-learning still follows robust instructional design, except that we cut down on all the frills and the bells and whistles, and of course we leverage the tools and templates that most authoring tools have. And this the tools that are available in the market really help us to roll out courses which are multi-device compatible, multi-browser compatible, and so on. And the beauty is that translation of online courses becomes really quick and manageable in very short time frames. So rapid e-learning is really the best way to achieve speed and scale with quality and without compromising on anything that makes your training really effective. Now, I'd like to very quickly take you through what we call the 4 R's of rapid e-learning. So the first one is redesign, where we look at our existing ILT materials and we repurpose them and redesign them for online learning. So coming to redesign, so with this redesign strategy of rapid e-learning, we can use the core ILT material and reformat it into a couple of formats. So you can see those listed here. You can convert those materials into the virtual instructor-led training materials. You can convert some of it to e-learning courses. You can take the critical parts of it, which will serve as job aids and use them as performance support tools. And then, of course, you can convert your ILT into blended learning. So there are all these options that are possible depending on, of course, your audience, your content, and the time you have for rolling across this redesigned set of materials. Now, I think by now most of us are familiar with virtual instructor-led training, but I'll still spend a few seconds to quickly take you through this. Now, unlike the popular conception that a VILT is nothing but a webinar, or it's just the same as conducting an ILT using a video conferencing facility like this, that's not really the case because there are some essential differences. A VILT is, as is the case with any other training, there are performance-based learning objectives in place. So it's not just disseminating knowledge or sharing thought leadership or just sharing some ideas. There are some well-defined learning objectives that the training has to meet, and learners are tested on it by the end of the session, and so on. And also, in a webinar, it's mostly for knowledge sharing, thought leadership, and the interaction is mainly from the facilitator to the various participants. However, in a VILT, it's a virtual replica of your physical classroom. So you have interactions many to many between the participants, between the facilitator and the participants, and so on. And you know, one thing is that the third entity in this mix is the technology itself. So there is a bit of challenge in managing the technology part, which is why a lot of us, when we do conduct VILTs, we have a host who takes care entirely of the technology end and so on. Now, here are some of the materials that you would need for a virtual instructor-led training. We highly recommend a getting started webinar because despite this being increasingly popular in recent times, there are still some learners and facilitators who still may be slightly apprehensive about using technology for conducting the training. And a getting started webinar really helps to do away with those apprehensions and gives participants a chance to get some hands on practice. And then you have the rest of your materials, which are your facilitator PPTs and your guides. And the difference between this and your regular ILT material is that in this VILT training materials, you would have to factor for the use of technology as well. So you would have to give detailed instructions on, for the various activities that you intend having. So some of these activities could be your chats, your polls, your annotation sessions, your breakout rooms, having participants do worksheets, and so on. So this is something that has to be very deliberately and consciously factored for when you're redesigning your existing ILT and using them for your VILT sessions. Now, the other option of redesigning is e-learning. Now, you can either go in for curriculums where you restructure and configure your ILT materials into small interrelated modules, or even standalone modules which you can then assemble. And usually, this tends to be sequential, the curriculums, where one module leads to the next, and when completion of each module ultimately leads to mastery of the topic that is laid out in the curriculum. And the biggest advantage is that you can leverage standardization across the curriculum. Of course, if you don't want a full-fledged curriculum, you always have the option of standalone courses which are self-paced, typically between 30 to 45 minutes, and covering one topic pretty comprehensively. So e-learning gives you a couple of options. Now, the other thing that's very critical for our learners to continue their learning journey is, of course, the performance support. Now, this is the golden opportunity for all of us to look at our core ILT materials and see what can be reconfigured as performance support. So, if you go by a typical ILT experience, there are questions which are asked of the facilitator towards the end of the session or towards the end of a webinar, even. So, that is good content which can be repurposed as an FAQ, for instance, and hosted on your LMS. Or maybe it's some specific content types, process diagrams, process flows, or best practices and tips which are followed by experts. These can all serve as good job aids. And as one of you mentioned earlier, how to videos are a great way to make sure that there is the required performance support. You have PDFs, interactive PDFs, somebody mentioned, ebooks, comparison charts, infographics, and so on. So there is a wide variety available for when we want to use deploy some of this core ILT material even in the form of performance support. So the tip here is that for them to be effective, make them micro in size and make sure that they're accessible through smart devices, and host them on your LMS to really increase the reach. Now, the key benefits of redesign, of course, are I think all of us are pretty aware of. However, I'll just very quickly touch on it. Now, with this, you can offer a direct channel of communication with your peers and instructors if it's a VILT you're going in for. When you supplement it with e-learning, you're offering them anywhere, anytime access without any delay in the training. And of course, when you move your digital assets online, your performance support, your job aids online, you're reducing the time that people would spend looking for resources or waiting for a facilitator to come and show up and answer the questions and so on. And from the organizational point of view, of course, it's reduced cost. You don't have to deal with the nightmares of logistics that are associated typically with classroom training. And it ensures that your solution is built in the flow of work by reducing the time that employees spend away from work on training. So these are some of the benefits of key benefits of redesign. This was a project where we had to move the entire ILT for first time managers into the online format. So we came up with a blended learning format, and the VLT, as I mentioned before, was in two phases, and we also had performance support. So this is what we developed for them, and these are some of the numbers there. So there were 5 e-learning courses and materials for 5 VLT sessions and for 5,000 managers, and these were all rolled out very successfully. So redesign, when it's time to move your ILT to the virtual medium, this is a great time to take a good hard look at your existing materials and redesign them for great impact. Now, coming to the second R, which is the record option, I think all of us know, have faced the pressure of having to roll out training very quickly, and there really isn't that much time sometimes to go in for a full-fledged e-learning program. So how do we do this? What is the best option available when you really have these very quick updates to roll out or quick trainings to be rolled out? Now, with the traditional e-learning development process, there are a minimum of 9 touch points with the SME throughout the process. So you come up with the LOs, you send it to the SME, they review it, they sign off, you fix the feedback, then you send the outline, the SME reviews it, then you get the sign off, then you send the prototype for review, then you get the feedback, you fix it, then you make the storyboard, you send it for review, you get a sign off, and then you send the functional course, and then you get the sign off. As you can see, it's a slightly longer process. Now, if you are in a tearing hurry to roll out training and you don't have the luxury of time, let's see how we can use the R, the record option, to roll out training very quickly. Now, the goal of this is to reduce the time. So this is the 5-step process that we follow here at ComLab. So what we do is we have the subject matter expert create a very quick PowerPoint deck, and the SME walks you through the PowerPoint and records their voice. So this can be done in PPT, or they can even just do the recording on their cell phone and send us the recording. Now what we do is we take that PowerPoint deck, which is a very crude, rough deck. It's not really designed or anything, but it has all the core content in place. And we have the audio file sent by the SME. So what we do is we streamline the narration, we transcribe the audio, we streamline the narration, and then we design the PowerPoint deck. And we send the script and the PowerPoint deck, the designed PowerPoint deck, to the SME. And the SME just reviews it once and gives you a sign off. And then we take this and we publish it as in the form of an MP4 video. Now, this is a very effective solution when you're hard pressed for time. And as you can see, with this record option, there are just a maximum of 3 touch points with the SME throughout the process. So they create the PPT, we streamline the transcript, design the PPT slides, they review it, we fix the feedback, and then we develop this rapid voiceover PPT video. Of course, we use a professional voice narrator to make it really effective, and that's it. So this is the record option, which we have been using very effectively. And the benefits, of course, are, you get to hear the SMEs, their personality into the course, because as this SME walks through, they share their anecdotes, their war stories, and there's a wealth of information that you can use. And for the organization, of course, it saves the SME time. It also ensures that since the SME is the one walking you through it, the courses are technically accurate. And of course, as I mentioned before, although you may not have the learner doing some interactive things with the content, the course still manages to be highly engaging because of um, because of the way it manages to retain the personality. It's a course with a personality. So this was the record option. And now I'll very quickly take you through the rebuild option. I think some of you mentioned that you're yet to get started with microlearning. So with the third R, what we do is we rebuild our existing legacy courses in the form of uh, microlearnings. So essentially, what you can do is you can take a look at these legacy courses, these lengthier courses, and it gives you the flexibility. With microlearning, you have the flexibility to break it up into very focused, small and focused learning nuggets, learning bites. And of course, as the name says, learning, there is, of course, a focus on acquisition of new knowledge, skills, abilities. Except that in the case of microlearning, we cover just one learning objective per microlearning. So that is the way we make it very tight and focused. And we make sure that, by the end of that learning, that one learning objective is successfully met. And those are some statistics about how this market size of microlearning is projected to grow by 2022. And those are very interesting figures. 2024, I'm sorry. And those are really interesting figures because I think a lot of us are beginning to now explore microlearning. And for those of us who have tested it and tried it and seen it work very successfully, we are looking at more and more legacy courses to repurpose, to rebuild as microlearning. And on the right, you see some of those formats which are popular. So you can have any of these. A microlearning could also be something as effective as a small quiz that you use. So you have a quiz which leads to the teaching content, and it's a very quick wrap. And then you have your videos and your interactive resources and so on. So these are some of the things you can do by revisiting your legacy courses and seeing how best you can break it up into easy to digest microlearning modules. Now, the benefits, as I think we know, are that you have more learner adoption because these don't take that much time off the learner at a stretch. So the learner adoption rates are likely to be much higher. And of course, they provide immediate and relevant value. And as I mentioned earlier, this is a good way to make sure that your learning is not disruptive, training is not disruptive, but that it is weaved into the learner's regular flow of work. And of course, because it's micro learning, you can just make it mobile friendly and make sure that your learners have access to it 24 by 7 at their point of need. And the benefits for the organization, of course, are that you accelerate the time to proficiency as and when each learning objective is met. It's that much quicker progress in acquisition of the required skill set. And it also decreases the development and delivery time and costs. And one of the things is that these can be very easily updated, reused, and also repurposed. And these are some of the collective benefits, both for the individual and the organization. Now, coming to the last option of republish, although I did mention it earlier when I was talking about microlearning. Now, a lot of us have content, legacy courses which have been developed with software which is now obsolete, such as Flash, and also some of the dated courses which were developed using previous versions, very older versions of authoring tools. Now, here's a golden opportunity for us to revisit those legacy courses and republish them to newer versions and making them mobile compatible and giving them a new lease of life, really. And by using this republish option, you can also give them a fresh look and feel. So you update not just your content, which has been updated, but also your branding. So, and with newer versions of authoring tools, there are more interesting interactivities and more interesting assessments that are possible. So you can make use of this opportunity when you're republishing your legacy courses to make sure that you use these the latest kind of interactivities and assessments that are available. And you can also look at these legacy courses and um, take a call on what content from there can be stripped out of the core content and used as job aids. And of course, one last thing is that you can really use this golden opportunity to make your courses translation friendly. So, one thing is if you have an in house authoring tool, courses that have been developed using other authoring tools can also be very quickly republished to it. And because we're talking about templates, standardization is something that really helps you to reach your goal of rolling out courses at speed. So here's a quick case study on something that we had done using the republish option. So basically, the requirement was to make a couple of, not a couple actually, these were 1500 courses, legacy courses that had been developed in Flash, Adobe Presenter, and older versions of Articulate Storyline. The requirement was to make these mobile compatible, and the audience was sales and service technicians. So we used Lectura Online to do this. And what we did was we developed wireframes for common screens across the courses and across the devices. We updated the graphical user interface to give it a more contemporary look and feel, and we also updated the old interactivities. So this Lectura made sure that we could also have online reviews, which made it in turn very easier for the subject matter experts. And all of this we could manage to accomplish within just 12 months. So those legacy courses really got a new life and using this republish option. So that, in a nutshell, is the 4 R's of rapid e-learning, where you, I'll just sum it up once again, redesign, where you look at your existing ILT and you redesign it for online learning using any of those multiple options that I just mentioned, starting with the VILT, the e-learning, performance support, and so on. And then you have the record option where you, when you're really hard pressed for time, you can record. You can have your SME do the quick PPT, record their voice, send it across, you redesign it, you do a professional voice narration, of course, after streamlining the audio script, and then you publish it as an MP4, which is very easy to listen to and which is very engaging because of the nature of the content that you have in there. And then you have the rebuild option where you look at your existing ILT material or your legacy courses, and we rebuild them as microlearning by breaking them up into smaller components, which makes it easily doable both from the learner's point of view and from the organization's point of view. And then finally, the republish option, which I just spoke about. So, with that, I come to the end of this webinar. And thank you so much for your active participation.